Welcome everyone to Breaking Into Tech. I'm really excited to do this special episode with Christy. She is not a Sabio graduate, and instead she's a wealth of knowledge, and she is a certified career coach, and she helps transform a job search using an actionable strategy and stellar resources. She's an expert in teaching how to network and create and implement a strategic job search, how to stop spinning your wheels and just applying to job boards, and how to help you land interviews and job offers in a quick period of time. So if you're not excited, then I don't know what else I could say to make you excited, but I'm really excited to learn from Christy and to share this knowledge with you. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and just welcome to the show, Christy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I love doing this.
So I did a little short introduction for you, but is there anything that I missed or you want to add to tell us about who you are?
Well, no, you did such a nice job. I mean, I've been in this field for over 7 years, almost 8 years, fell in love with it, and started my own business after working for boot camps. I've worked for several boot camp programs, all of them fabulous, including Sabio. And I enjoy the space. I enjoy the tech space. I enjoy the boot camp, participants and working with them. And I think so many people don't really know how to do a job search. Like, you can go and get the skills during the boot camp program, which is phenomenal, but you also have to know how to make sure you land. And I know that Sabio does a great job with their career development. But that's just what I focus on, is helping people get over that hump of understanding what I need to be doing. So it's just up my alley. I love it.
Yeah. And as a veteran, I left the Air Force, and I had a week-long class about how to find a job. And I've learned so much from doing Breaking Into Tech that I'm like, I don't know if I ever, because I went to be a stay-at-home mom, and then I started my business. So I've never actually done a job hunt. And so talking to graduates and hearing about how much work and how much strategy and effort is required into finding a job, I'm like, they did not prepare me when I left the military, and I had no clue. So yeah, so you might have a role, you need to start talking to military people and start.
Well, I do. I've worked with a lot of people in military, and I have some recruiters that really just focus on military, people transitioning into tech. And so it's building all those connections that makes such a big impact. So I love that. I love helping, veterans kind of find their space in the world after service. Mm-hmm.
It's such a needed resource. So that's awesome to hear. So let's talk about what is the most important thing that graduates need to prepare for when at a strong job search in tech.
Well, there's such a multitude of things to prepare for. I mean, if you're in a boot camp program, the main things to be focused on is what your teachers are saying, and understand, obviously, the concepts of development, of software development. But when it comes to the job search, which comes directly after the boot camp, you need to be ready to go. So you need to be ready to run versus, okay, now let me figure this out. So some of the most important things is, let's be realistic with the job market. We all have heard, oh my gosh, tech, everything's crazy. Yeah, it's a tough market out there. I did hear there's this September surge that happened, and people are saying, yes, there was a surge. But we also have to set our expectations that this is going to be a bit lengthier job search than in the past. And that's just the reality. So there's a couple of things you want to think about there. Okay, if I think I'm going to get a job within a month to a 2 month, well, nobody's going to get a job doing anything in a month to 2 months, right? That's just not realistic. But if we think about what that time frame naturally should be, it's usually 4 to 5 months. 5 to 6 months. That's kind of the normal job search when you're looking. And I would say focus on that 6 to 7 months, 5 to 7. I mean, I see people land quite quickly, and then there are other ones that kind of drag. And I think the ones that kind of drag maybe aren't doing everything they should be doing, especially the networking piece. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I always tell people, focus on hybrid roles, focus on in-office roles. If you are planning on just applying to remote roles, you're looking at a very long time frame. Everybody is applying for remote roles. So the competition is enormous. And secondly, a lot of big companies are now saying you got to get back in the office or you got to do hybrid. So there are very few jobs. I don't know if I should say that, but there are a lot less jobs today than in the past 3 years of remote work. So don't set yourself up for failure. Make sure you're taking, you're using all the options of hybrid and in office. Focus on your skills, make sure you're learning what you need to learn and then keep going. You always want to be learning even after the boot camp. They're going to ask you in interviews, hey, what have you been doing since you graduated? Well, let me show you. You need to have things that you're doing. You need to keep rolling, keep your projects in your GitHub situated, we'll talk a little bit about that down the road, but networking is the best policy. Start now, do it, continue to do it.
Yeah, and how can, as a graduate, I know this isn't on the questions, but how can someone who's brand new into the tech space get connected with other people who are, you have your graduates, the people who you've worked with through the program, but is there other ways that you can network with people as you're graduating that you might not typically think of?
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn is my number one best friend. I have my own business, and LinkedIn is for me a source of just knowledge and networking and people relationship building. And it's the same for people that are looking for a job. Being able to reach out to people, this is part of what I like to talk about, is that when you're networking, which a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with that. I'm going to give you a stat. About 85% of people that network will land a job. You've got up to an 85% success rate when you're networking. 5% success rate if all you're going to do is sit on job boards and apply to random jobs. Least successful. So when we talk about, what should we be doing during and after a boot camp and continue that, it doesn't stop, is join events that are tech-based on LinkedIn. They've got events that you can just log into and look at how many people have registered for it before you sign up. If you've got hundreds of people that have registered, that's hundreds of people on that event that you can reach out to in the chat and start conversations. I have met people on events through LinkedIn that way, where we just started a conversation back and forth because you can go private on them, on Zoom, stuff like that. And I am now very good friends with people all around the world just by doing little things like that. So I think the biggest thing is definitely engage on LinkedIn, find people in the tech space, build your network out within the tech space on LinkedIn, and join events, join groups. They've got tech-based groups that you can join. These are all your people. That's networking. All of that is networking. Did I answer that?
No, that was perfect. I loved it because it's so true. Because when I was in the military getting out, I was thinking the way you get a job is you apply, which is ridiculous because as a veteran, you have this huge network at your disposal and you don't really understand it until after you find out that it's there and it's under a rock. You're oh, there's all this stuff that I didn't even know existed. And so I think that's the same thing in the tech world. Anytime you're in a niche area, if you can get connected, I like the idea of going to events and networking with people and having those private conversations, because I've done all of those things and those have led to opportunities and different things. So I think that's great advice. And I feel like networking might have been one of the must-dos that graduates need to consider when starting to look for a job, but is there anything else?
Yeah, there are a few things to start thinking about, and some of them, like this one, after you graduate a program and you feel like it's time to start really diving into the job search, turn on your open to work on your LinkedIn profile. Some people will say, no, it makes you look desperate. I don't agree with that. And based on all the recruiters that I've talked to, they say turn it on. It is good for recruiters to see that you are actually open to work, because some of their filters that they use, they are looking for people that have open to work turned on. So you can do it privately too. There's a function in LinkedIn where you can go into settings and set it for recruiters only to view. But word on the street is that it is not something that makes you look desperate. It is good to have that turned on so people know. Let's see. The other thing is it's important to kind of identify at least, I always recommend 40 companies of interest. So like I said earlier, a lot of people just start applying to random jobs. Least effective way. Be strategic. You have to be strategic. The strategy I talk to with my clients is identify 40 companies of interest. Determine what you're looking for in a company. Think about that. Like, do you want a big company? Do you want a corporation? Do you want a startup? Like, start thinking through, do research, Google it. Google the companies, look at Glassdoor and see if they have good reviews or not so good reviews, and take that with a grain of salt. Like sometimes people in certain level jobs are bashing it, which ruins the score, but maybe entry level, mid-level, senior level tends to be better. So kind of manage that expectations. Identify if they're hiring. If they are, that's a company you want to add to your list. Do you have any connections at that company? You want to think about that. Like put a spreadsheet together. You're going to have the companies down one column. Then you're going to identify, are they hiring? Yes or no. Obviously check company reviews, maybe do yes for one, yes or no. For positive, negative, do you have any connections at the company? If you have a yes there, like in that column that you've put together, that's a really great thing. Having connections internally at companies you're interested in, you want to make sure you're reaching out to those people. If you don't have connections, it doesn't mean you take that company off of your list. It means you start engaging through networking of reaching out to people at the company in job titles that you're interested in. You can do that on LinkedIn by going to the company profile, hitting people and scrolling down. It's going to start with all the recruiters and then it'll go into managers and, software developers, anything. You can see them. Those are the people you want to then message and get to know them. Ask them for a quick 10-minute chat. Do not tell them that you're looking for a job. That's not networking. Networking is getting to know someone. Do you have alumni from anywhere? How dedicated are you to fill out that application? Those are things you want to think about as criteria when you start the job search. And you're identifying these companies. Remember, don't do quick apply. You want to make sure that you're reading the job description fully. It aligns with what your abilities are, and then go to the company website. So maybe you find it on a job board like LinkedIn. You know the company name, go to the company website, find the job there, apply there. You're going to get a more likely having hits from that process than just doing quick apply, which tends to go into a black hole, or just doing it on any job board. Go to the company website. That helps a lot. And go for the appropriate level role. I had someone once tell me they'd been applying to like 500 positions. And I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, I don't know. I haven't gotten any interviews. I'm like, well, what type of job titles are you going for? And she said, senior level software engineer. I'm like, didn't you just graduate from a boot camp? And she said, yeah, but you make more money at those levels. I'm like, no, doesn't work that way, right? This is common sense. I'm sure everybody's like, what? But yeah, you want to make sure that you're looking at entry level roles, because that's the only way you're going to land, the interview. So be realistic. And I think that kind of covers most of it.
Yeah, that's really good. I like the open to, because I see that on LinkedIn and I don't think people are desperate. I say, "Oh, let me look at their profile and see if I can help connect them." And so even, I'm not a recruiter, but I'm a normal person and I see, "Oh, they are open to work. They're looking for a job." And if it's something that I can help them, then I help them. And so I think that's a really good piece of advice. The job market's crazy right now. I think people understand, like, life happens, and I'm not looking down on someone. Oh, you're looking for a job, like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
kind of crazy that it's
it's
bad
not a
advice.
it's not a good perspective to have. I love your perspective, and that holds true for me. Is how can I help this person? So to me, seeing the green banner is like, oh, let's see what's going on there. So yeah, I agree with you. It is something that I think holds value and allows not just recruiters or maybe even hiring managers to find you, but all the people on LinkedIn who are so engaged and so helpful to people. It's really a great it's a great group of people that are doing big things and helping people. And I think it's moved in that direction over the past year with, networking over the weekend, grabbing those new connections. Like there's so much out there that are helping people. So I agree with every point you just made.
It's such a great platform. And it's, if you're not on LinkedIn, step one, get on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes.
Do you have any advice related to like interviews, resumes, or other topics people might not think about when searching for a job?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the resume piece. I think the biggest bit of advice I give people is stay away from the internet. Do not ever get a resume template from the internet. They are all outdated, which means you're going to have a picture of yourself on your resume. You're going to have a bunch of columns and some pretty things going on and all these big like icons, and don't even go there. Find someone that that can help you with a resume. Use the most simplistic format that you can find. So this is how I tee it up for people I work with. You've got your header with your name. Underneath that, city, state, zip. We do not add our physical address. We used to, but we don't do it anymore because we're on the internet. And before, we'd put our resume in an envelope and mail it off. So don't put your actual physical address. Then, of course, you should have your phone number and you should have your Gmail. Hotmail, no. Yahoo, no. AOL, no. Those all date you. So if you tend to be a little older and those are the ones that you have, switch it to Gmail. Gmail is considered the most professional email to have, especially while job seeking. So make sure you change that. And then you're going to want your LinkedIn. So you have to do that and get that situated and stellar. Your LinkedIn link. And then make sure you take off those little numbers and letters at the very end of your LinkedIn URL. When you do yours, or if you're looking at yours right now, if you have a LinkedIn, you can see them. Make sure you go to your profile, top right, it says edit your URL. Click on that. And then at the top right, it'll show you that you can get in there and edit that. That just shows you know what you're doing. And then, of course, your GitHub. So when you go through a program for a boot camp, you're going to get a GitHub. You're going to sign up for that. You're going to have all your projects in there. They need to be stellar. You need to pin at least 4 to 6 of your best projects, have nice overviews. And then you need stellar readmes, and you need a lot of hits like commits. You need to make sure you're active. That's what employers are going to look for there. But, the rest of the resume is just very simplistic. Some will do a professional summary. I think if you're someone who's coming from the military, I think it's not a bad idea. A lot of people in tech say you don't need that. You know what? You do you. If you feel like it'll be a nice little place to kind of give a little, maybe 3 sentences of an overview of why you're moving into tech, your skills in tech, and what your transition is, that's fine. Skills section of all your technical skills. And then the project section of your resume is going to be the most important one when you're landing in tech or transitioning into tech. Don't just say it's an app designed to do X, Y, and Z. Give a nice overview. And then the next thing is the most important part, which is your role. Do not focus so much on here's the app and this is what it does. Hiring managers and technical recruiters want to hear you speaking the language. So you want to make sure that you're actually doing that. So here's an example. Okay. This woman I worked with, she did an app for her capstone project. It's called App Beware. Here's her overview. React Redux application. So App Beware is a crowdsourcing platform that empowers the community to raise awareness about the potential dangers of apps. This is the role that she provides, which nobody really provides their role in here. And this is the most important part. She said, used jQuery Ajax method to make requests to server-side APIs. created an HTML page for new user accounts and styled it with CSS and utilized SQL libraries to post new user accounts. You're talking their language. They know what you're talking about. They can picture it. That is what gives you credibility. That project section is the most important section for someone transitioning into tech. And then you can have a tools utilized section with all the technology or all the tech skills that you used. So what else? Education, you can pop that to the top if you want, because if you graduate from a program, you can have it at the bottom too. I don't think it makes a huge difference. And I guess your experience part is going to be also a very big piece, and you want to highlight the transferable skills from your past experience into the tech space. So you're going to want to think about, what did I do in my previous work? Attention to detail, problem solving, collaboration, working in team environments, all those different pieces. You want to make sure that those are things that they're going to look for in a candidate in tech. So make sure you're lining all of those types of words up. Tailor that resume to the job description. If you have the skills they're looking for, you want to make sure you include it. And the way I have people format their experiences, do a nice little overview, justified left under your title, of what the role was, like what your responsibilities were, maybe 2 sentences. If it's a big job, maybe 3 concise sentences, and then 3 to 5 bullet points of how you went above and beyond, what your accomplishments were, what kind of impact did you make. So bullet points draw the eye in. For attention, you want to make sure their eye goes to accomplishments, not a bunch of job duties. And that's what most people do. They have bullet point after bullet point of what their job was. No, that's fine, but that's not what they're looking for. That's not why you draw the eye in. You do for success. I think that's a lot.
That is a lot. I liked in the comments, Irene said that good to know that the online resume templates don't work. And I think that's really powerful, because I think when you're first looking to write a resume, you're like, oh, I'll just Google how to do it. But the stuff that comes up at the top is the stuff that, like, over time has gotten the most hits, and it's not the new most important thing. So that's like, I do a lot of research, and so sometimes I'm like on the 4th page to find what I'm actually looking for, because the top hits are old articles or,
Yep.
it's not unless it's like a big news thing that happens but sometimes I'm like searching and searching and I have to redo the words. And so that makes so much sense that the internet is not the go-to place. I mean, it's probably on there, but you have to sift through and find the like most up-to-date thing, and it's always changing. And yeah. And
Yeah.
I the second thing, when you were talking about using the language and explaining what you do, I loved how the description like talked about the different programs she used, and someone who's not in tech would read it and be like, that makes no sense. But obviously if you're in tech, so that even gives you more credibility, because it's so complicated that the average user couldn't say that in a way that makes sense. They would just throw in acronyms and it would be just a gobbledygook. But what she had written, it made so much sense because it all related together. It built off each other, and it showed how the program, like how exactly she did what she did in
Yeah.
a way that they understand and you understand as a software engineer. So I think that's really good. I love that.
Yeah, it's a really big one I like to hit hard, because so many people don't do that section, right? And that is really the best part of their resume right there, is showcasing your knowledge. And this person that I worked with, I mean, she landed probably within a month or 2 after graduating boot camp. And her resume and obviously her ability to interview well, all of those things kind of go hand in hand. Hey, Irene, thanks for your comment.
So we talked a little bit about, is there any tip or tool in job searches that you can use? I liked you talked about like making a list of 40 companies and, and knowing specifically what you want, and realizing that remote is not the same thing it was during the pandemic. The world is changing again. I can see that shift in a lot of different things. So like when you go to a job board, what would you need to think about, and how would that work for you?
Well, I think I think honestly, some of the main things that people really should be focused mainly on when you're starting a job search is just being strategic. There are a lot of pieces that go into the job search, and many people just jump into, I'm going to put a resume together, I'm going to start sending it out. And I know this is very true, and it's very unfortunate. I do recruiting for just a small startups company that my husband works for. So please don't reach out to me. I'm not really a recruiter, but I recruit for them. But what I notice is people don't read the job description. They are literally just applying because if they actually read it, they would know they're not qualified. So that is a consistent thing that I have seen for a long time. And it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time for them, and it's a waste of time for the person who's looking it over. And that is something that is just the worst thing you can do, is not doing your due diligence and not being actually specific and strategic on what you want. So that's why I say it is so important that you sit down, identify at least 40 companies of interest, do your research on all those companies, find out if you have any kind of connections, alumni, do your due diligence with tracking all of that. And then that is what you're going to work off of, not waking up in the morning, having your coffee, opening your computer, and just get on job boards and be like this. And just, all right, I'll apply to that one. I'll apply to that one. That's just the worst thing you can do. And that's what most people do. So if you're strategic and you're actually going after companies of interest, which means not that you're just applying for jobs, but you're networking with them. And that's the number one thing for the job search. And so to be strategic in that area, you have to have the companies of interest, and you have to make sure you're engaging with them. So that's a whole nother conversation, like setting up an informational interview, or I like to just call it a coffee chat. Any way that you can start to get to know people internally at companies of interest, you're doing the best thing you can do, because those internal connections, if you build a really strong relationship with them, they're going to be more than happy to help you. So don't reach out and say the whole, I'm looking for a job. It'll be crickets. But if you do, and it's going to take a lot of outreach before you have people that will actually, hey, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to hop on a call. Number one, you've done the right messaging. You've connected with them. Hey, just noticed that you've been in the tech field for several years. I would love a chance to talk to you for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, just to talk about your journey. I'm currently transitioning into the tech space and just want to learn. So now it's like no pressure whatsoever. If they reply, remember, when you set up these things, you've got to have some good questions to ask them. You're in control. You're in the driver's seat when it comes to actually running this coffee chat. So make sure you have some good open-ended questions. What do you love about what you do? What's something you would change if you could? Like, these are good indicators of what it's like to work there, what the work is like. But have those questions, and then at the end say, thank you so much. I would love to stay in touch with you. And then you are the one that stays in touch. It's your job to make sure you continue to reach out to them. I mean, I've done that over the years. And just 2 weeks ago, I had like 6 people that I reached out to who are my connections on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, we haven't chatted in a while. Let's get on a call. And that was my day on Friday. It's just hopping on calls with people all over the country, just talking and catching up. That's networking. And the people that actually say yes, those are your people. Anyone who's going to stop what they're doing for some perfect stranger, those are your people. Those are the ones that are going to help you. And those are the ones you want to know, because they're willing to help, which means you can pay it forward as well at some point.
Yeah, and I was listening because I get a lot of things in my LinkedIn inbox where I just am like, no, I don't want to talk to you. But if you personalize it, and if I got a message like, can you help me, and you have that like connection, like, I see that you've been running a podcast and I'm starting my podcast and I have some questions and I really would like some help. That's different than like, hey, let's chat for 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't even know you, or like, what's the value? Not that I'm going to get value out of it, but like, why do we need to talk? Like, why do we need to have that connection? Why do I need to take time out of my day so that you make the person who's getting the message feel valued?
Mhm.
And then they're like, oh, this person really needs my help, so I'm going to help them. And everyone's not going to respond.
Right.
But instead of a generic message that you could send to 10 people, personalizing that message so that shows that you actually want to talk to the person, and not that you're like, well, I found 10 people who work at Amazon and you were one of 10. So here's a message. Like, that's sometimes
Yeah,
how it
that's me.
feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was actually, and stay professional. It is so important for you to behave professionally on LinkedIn. This is not a dating service, right? And I hear people talk about that all the time. It's like, this is a professional, page. Let's stay professional. But I was talking with, I was working with a client, and I said, let's just do it. Let's go ahead. You found someone online. Go ahead and reach out to them and message them. And we worked on their messaging, which is kind of like what you and I have just talked about. Immediately, the person he did a connection request. Immediately, they accepted the connection request. I'm like, oh, that's great. Go ahead now and leave them a message, because now that you're connected. And they left a message. I kind of helped him craft it. And immediately the guy replied again and says, yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. Here's my phone number. Call me anytime. Like, that's the best. That is the best. And it was so great, because I was like, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. And it was an awesome experience for him. So he was more engaged to want to do that. A lot of times it takes a hot minute to get there, though. So
Yeah.
you gotta be persistent.
Well, and I'm connected because even though I have my business, my life is changing, and there are companies that I would like to work with. And so I'm connected with some of the companies that I really admire, and those are my connections. So, like, I'm planning for the future. So even if you're like just starting to get into software engineering, you can start connecting with people at companies that you want to work with, and start seeing what they're posting, seeing what they're working on, commenting on their stuff, so that when they get, when you're at the end of graduating and you're looking for help, they'll be like, oh, I know that person because they commented on my post, or they've shared some of my stuff. And so you kind of like, you can also go that route, like that's a long-term strategy. That's an introvert strategy. That's
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what an introvert would do. That's what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
like getting to know them. Yeah. So there's also like, you can look at it that way, like start this even before you're ready to start sending out jobs and looking for jobs, because you're still learning the technical aspect. You can start connecting with people at companies, commenting and learning about, that community and that culture just through LinkedIn. So that's another good strategy as well.
It really is. It's never too soon to network, no matter what stage, and you should always continue to network. It should be a part of your life. Like, I mean, I know that there's introverts and they struggle with that piece, but I think pushing yourself a little bit. I'm the reverse. Like, I'll talk to anyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not a big deal for me, but I know people struggle with that. So it's baby steps.
Yeah, I am an introvert, and that's why sometimes when I get messages and they're very generic, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I definitely don't want to talk to you. Like, I don't have any connection, and it's like I just don't want to. So
And if they don't take the time to actually leave you a message, I'm like, no, I'm out. Like,
right.
if you're going to connect with me, I will look over their profile. And if I feel like, should they be in my network? Is this a good person in my network? Did they take the time to even message me on why they want to be in my network? That's kind of my yes or no kind of situation. Like, I want to build a really strong network on my LinkedIn, because I can help them, they can help me. Like, I want to be around people that are the give and take.
Yeah.
So, and are professional.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned GitHub and when you were talking about resumes, and I want to dive a little bit deeper just so that people can understand why it's important. And you kind of went a little bit over what it is, but why is it so important for software engineers?
Well, I mean, initially, like I had said, you're going to use it through the boot camp. So you'll be hosting your projects in GitHub. GitHub, though, is another form of, it's not social media, but it's a place where employers and hiring managers, recruiters will go and look at your actual GitHub work. So at the end of your program, you're going to want that link up there for your GitHub. And they will, and let me tell you, if your GitHub is not good, do not put it on there. I know people who they kept, their resume looked really, really good. And everything seemed to go. I'm like, what's going on? Why are you not landing interviews? And he's like, I don't know. And I pushed on his GitHub and it's just nothing. It's horrible. And I'm like, well, that's why. So he had to redo his entire GitHub. So if you haven't started a program, you want to make sure that from the very beginning of a boot camp to the very end, when you're working in GitHub, even on projects, commit, which basically means you're hitting a button and committing the code, which is building whatever it is, the app that you're making. If you are someone who lets other people on the team do the committing and building out the project or the application that you're making, you're not going to have any of that. And if you are on a project and you share that on your GitHub to the employers, they can go in and they can actually see how many people were on that project and how many commits did each of them do. So if you're at the bottom of that, that does not look good. So that is something that everyone should know, top of mind when you join a program, is that you need to make sure. My dog is wanting to get out. You need to make sure that you are committing and that you're doing strong readmes. What's a readme? It's kind of a nice little overview in your GitHub of the project. So it provides you with the opportunity to list out, what was your objective? What did you do? Like there's all these little elements that you can include. And it's important to have a strong README as well as having, a lot of activity and they're going to look at your code, what your code looks like, because you're going to host your code in there. So those are kind of the basics.
Yeah. I love that you talked about, like, you can have a strong resume, and then if you have that link in there, they're going to click on it and they're going to see it and they're going to be like, yeah, this resume doesn't match what I'm seeing. And, the work is more valuable than a piece of paper that says all these great things about you. So that makes so much sense why it's so important. And what if you're like close to graduating and you don't have that strong GitHub? Is there something that you can do to help make it stronger?
Just going to have to work on that. You're going to have to build those up. You're going to have to add new projects. I mean, when you graduate, do not stop coding in your GitHub. Do not stop doing projects. Do more projects. Take on more. Find another certification that you can do. There's so many out there that are free. Take courses, Coursera. I mean, there's so many things out there. You need to keep engaging with learning after you graduate to keep your skills up. Join Upwork. That's one that I tell people to do, because as soon as you land your first client on Upwork.com, it's basically freelance work, and you can set your pay, range low. And as you get more people that you're doing small projects for them, you can increase that. But the nice thing is, if you start getting projects there, you can kind of say, this is where I'm working. I'm working with Upwork doing projects. And then you can list them in your LinkedIn profile, on your resume, things like that. But you just have to always be engaged. You have to continually be working in your GitHub, doing new projects, new applications, learning new skills. It's an ongoing thing. You just don't ever want to stop. And a lot of people do that.
Well, yeah, because at the end of a boot camp, you're like, well, I'm so exhausted. And then you're like, I need to find a job. And so you pour like all your energy into that because you need to get paid. But that I like the idea of Upwork, because that gives you the opportunity not to just, certifications are good, but as I like to do projects and solve problems. And so having someone who has a real problem that you need to solve, and you get to use your coding expertise and even gain more confidence because you're able to help them. That just sounds like such a great way to do it. And I love that there's free courses and all these other opportunities. So like carve into your time of like looking for a job also to keep coding. So that makes a lot of sense.
And the other big thing is, how long should you be doing? Like, what is a full-time job search? A lot of people think it's 40, 50, 60 hours a week. It is not. It is 20 to 25 hours a week. You need to have time to decompress. You need to be very focused, really block out your time that you're going to do development on your GitHub or project development, time that you're going to do a course, time that you're going to do networking, time that you're going to be applying. Like, do not burn yourself out, because honestly, it's difficult enough as it is. So make sure 20 to 25 hours is scheduled Monday through Friday, and that you have time to go for a walk, to go to the gym, to, do the things that you need to do to keep your mental health up, because a job search is not fun. So do everything you can for your mental health piece. Because I know people, they just go for hours and hours every day. And I'm just like, no, don't do that. That's just bad for your mental health. What was the other thing you said? I don't remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
I think that's really good. Your mental health is so important. And I mean, applying for jobs is a lot of rejection, and that can be really disappointing. So I love that advice. That's a great piece of advice that I think a lot of people overlook, like how important, how much time should I be spending? How should I take care of myself? Because it's not easy. Maybe that's why I'm like, I don't want to get a job. I just like my freelance life because I don't have to, I still get rejections. It's just a different kind of rejection.
Mhm.
So,
It's
but
hard. It's hard. So, and it's good to have a partner. Get out of the house and say, hey, let's meet at the library, at a coffee shop, or whatever. Or if you don't have a partner in crime, go to the coffee shop yourself. Find a cool place to go and make sure you're able to kind of decompress by changing locations. I mean, I've been working remotely at home for over 4 years, and I have to get out of the house. Like, I have to say, I'll go to the library, get a room there, do my client calls, whatever, work on projects, whatever the case may be. But you need to change it up, because you'll just get depressed. And then you're not going to be successful with your job
right.
search. So,
Yeah. So this has been such a great conversation, but I want to wrap it up with a final piece of advice that you can give to students who are about to graduate from Savio.
I think honestly, the best advice is be good to yourself and network your butt off, because that is really going to help you land the job. So if you're really scared and nervous about the networking piece, do it with a friend. Try and find things that you can go to in person. If that's a little bit easier, it might not be easier, but just start the networking piece, itty bitty baby steps, by just reaching out and having small conversations. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel. But the networking piece is the main piece of your job search, and be kind to yourself. The mental health piece is huge as well.
Yeah. Networking, I mean, it can be really scary and intimidating. And when I was first starting to network, I would take baby steps of okay, I'm gonna shut off the introvert part of me and I'm gonna push myself to talk to 5 people. And then once I talked to the 5 people, I would reward myself with a
Yep.
drink or or a cookie or something. If you that way, it wasn't just doing something, but I had to reward myself.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's
Yeah.
great. That's a great
So
way to do it. And
yeah,
I mean,
so
I
go
love
ahead.
like 5. Like, I'm going to reach out to 5 people this week. Like, that's not that bad. It's one person a day, like Monday through Friday. So the baby steps, yeah, that makes good sense. I like your approach.
Yeah, and those baby steps add up over time. You
Mhm.
think it's only 5, it's well, in a month that's over 20 people. So that's a lot of people. So if you do those tiny steps, and then that doesn't get you burnout. So
Yeah.
there's a win-win in all of that. But thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. If people are interested in working with you because they've got to hear some of your what would be the best way for them to contact you?
You can reach out to me through LinkedIn. Um, sh- um, should I put that in the chat, or is it?
Um, I think your contact info is in the comments or in
Okay.
the write-up at the beginning, but I'll make sure that it's there and I can
Yeah, you
add it to
could.
the chat.
Yeah, that's easy enough. If you want to go onto my LinkedIn, feel free to drop a follow, connect with me, message me. I have my website on there too. So there's a contact sheet on there. So if you want to email me that way, and my email is on my contact information on my LinkedIn too. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Awesome. So we talked a lot about LinkedIn and how important it is, and that's how to connect with Christy. So thank you so much for your time and for all your expertise. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. This was great. I really appreciate you inviting me.